Welcome. You're officially locked into Persuasions of Comfort. I am your host, Naum. I want to give a big shout out to all the listeners out there who've been tuning in since day one. The love and support is 100% greatly appreciated. Let's get it. Boy, really give me high. The topic of discussion for today revolves around the process of achieving a breakthrough. I want y'all to think back to a time when you implemented a strategy to move closer to a significant breakthrough. What was your mindset during that journey? What was your emotional state during that journey? What story were you telling yourself as you navigated the challenges and made some progress? We all anticipate that moment when something inside of us finally clicks, that moment where we are no longer stuck. And that is the moment where we've made it over the hill. That's when you realize that you've achieved a breakthrough. When facing challenges, there are often key factors that influence our ability to push through. For me, I think about energy levels. This is mental or emotional state, motivation, the story that we're telling ourselves, and strategy. This also includes time and the approach. In this episode, I want to introduce 3 powerful frameworks that I learned from Tony Robbins that can help us create breakthrough moments. State, story, and strategy. These 3 pillars form the foundation of how we naturally, well, at least for me, how we naturally experience and achieve breakthrough moments. So before I dive in, I want to first start off by defining what a breakthrough really is and explore some common barriers that prevent us from reaching those transformative moments. So what is a breakthrough really? We often think about a breakthrough as huge life-changing moments, but in reality, it can be as simple as a shift in mindset, a small realization, or the courage to take a bold new step forward. Tony Robbins, a very popular motivational speaker, describes breakthroughs as a moment in time when something finally changes, when what seemed impossible suddenly becomes possible. But most importantly, it's not just a thought, it's something that you act on. It's the moment when an idea transforms into action. I'm sure we all can relate. For me, my definition of a breakthrough is a moment of clarity, transformation, or progress that helps me move past certain barriers that once felt insurmountable. When I look at breakthrough moments, I'm not looking for something drastic. I'm not looking for a drastic change. Sometimes it is a subtle yet powerful shift in my perspective. It's usually a change in a strategy that I implemented or possibly a new way of managing my emotions. For example, a breakthrough can be as simple as overcoming the fear of heights, or maybe reframing the definition of failure and discipline. It's not something that you're fearful of, but something that you look as stepping stones to success. When I was working on this podcast episode, I was asking myself, why do breakthrough moments take so long to come into fruition? Why do they not happen automatically? I realized that they require intentional shifts, whether in strategy, action that you're taking, a story, meaning you're adopting new beliefs or a new pattern, or maybe it's just state, shifting your energy, your mindset, and emotional state of mind. So, what is a breakthrough moment really? We often think of a breakthrough as huge, life changing moments. But in reality, it can be as simple as a shift in mindset, a small realization, or just the courage to take a new step forward. Tony Robbins, a very popular motivational speaker, describes a breakthrough as moments in time when everything changes, when what seemed impossible suddenly becomes possible. But most importantly, it's not just a thought, it's something that you act on. It's a moment when an idea transforms into action. As for me, a breakthrough is a moment of clarity, transformation, or progress that helps me move past certain barriers that once felt insurmountable. It doesn't always have to be a drastic change. Sometimes for me, it's as subtle yet a powerful shift in perspective, a change in a strategy that I once implemented, or possibly just a new way of managing my emotions. For example, a breakthrough can be as simple as overcoming the fear of heights. Maybe that's not simple, but just an example. Or maybe just reframing your definition of failure and discipline. It's not something to fear, but something to look as a stepping stone towards success. When I was working on this podcast episode, I was asking myself, why does it take so long to reach a breakthrough moment? Why don't they happen automatically? I realized that they require intentional shifts, whether in strategy, taking new action, a story, adopting new beliefs or a new pattern or state, shifting your energy, your emotion, or mental mindset. Tony Robbins explains that breakthroughs can be triggered by a variety of experiences, and these include conversation, things that spark new insight, or loss that forces new perspectives, experiences that challenges us to or challenges our current way of thinking, or new challenges that push us beyond our limits. Or maybe it could be emotion that triggers urgency and clarity. For example, a breakthrough moment is like flipping on a light switch in a dark room. All of a sudden, you see what was there all along. Another common challenge of why breakthroughs don't happen automatically is because sometimes we misidentify what's truly holding us back. It's easy to blame the person standing next to us or the person that we can actually see from afar. But are we actually stuck because of them? Or is it because of our mindset, our beliefs, and the actions that we take? So before I go any further, let's take a moment to reflect. What would a breakthrough moment look like for you right now? Think of a challenge, something that you're working towards or a journey that you're on. What would a breakthrough moment look like for you? Would it look like shifting your mindset to reach a tangible goal? Or is it just a new way of seeing yourself when you look in the mirror? Are you recognizing these breakthrough moments when they happen, or are you only seeing them in hindsight? So think back to a time when you faced this challenge or the challenges that you're currently facing. What did you need to change? Is it your state of mind, your story, or your strategy? Understanding these key factors can provide the much needed clarity to overcome obstacles that create real breakthrough moments. So, I want to cover some of these key factors that I mentioned: state, story, and strategy. What does an unhelpful state of mind look like? Well, it includes stress and being overwhelmed. High stress reduces cognitive function, making it harder to think clearly or act decisively. It can leave you feeling and believing that your abilities and your circumstances are unchangeable, which now stifles your growth in the experimentation process. Because most of the time we're doing trial and error, right? And when you're overwhelmed and you're stressed and you don't believe that you can change your circumstance, now you have low energy and a lack of motivation. And what usually follows that is poor physical health, lack of sleep, and emotional burnout, which now leaves you with very depleted energy to pursue your breakthrough moment that you're actually meant for. And now I want to talk about the limiting stories. What is a limiting story? A limiting story really starts off with negative self talk. These are internal narratives such as, I'm not good enough, or this will never work out. And what's happening is it's always backed by the fear of failure or the fear of success. What is fear? Fear is false evidence appearing real. Fear can lead you to paralysis, preventing us from taking bold steps forward. And what's really happening here is once you have these negative self talks and it's supported by fear, what is the root foundation? That root foundation is past experiences, trauma, or disappointing events that created these mental barriers that are keeping you or preventing you where you are now hesitant to try again. And now I want to talk about the lack of strategy. What happens when you don't have the right strategy? You have undefined goals. Many of us do not clarify or clearly define the goals that we're seeking to achieve, which now leads to aimless efforts. Inadequate planning without a roadmap or strategy will leave even the most motivated individuals in a perpetual cycle of stagnation. Because what's happening is we're constantly using the wrong tools and the wrong methods. And the reason why we're doing this is because we rely on ineffective approaches that are either outdated or just don't suit the specific situation or circumstance that we're currently in. So now I want to talk about how do we leverage state, story, and strategy in order to achieve breakthrough moments. I'm going to start with state. What does it mean to optimize your state of mind? Your emotional and your mental state plays a critical role when facing new challenges or navigating any change in your life. The goal here is simple. By prioritizing your physical, emotional, and mental well being, you enhance your ability to think and act decisively in order to move towards the breakthrough moment that you're actually meant for. The goal here is to put yourself in a proper state of mind that aligns with what you're trying to accomplish. Story time. I remember when I was in undergrad, my cousin handed me these series of CDs where there's a will, there's an A. In these CDs, the coach instructor talked about what does it take to go from a C student to an A student. And some of his instructions were pretty simple, right? He talked about a student who's sitting in class and he's slouching and he's not really attentive. How can you be an A student if you're not actually engaged? You're not in the state of learning. You have to sit up, track the teacher, be engaged, ask questions, etc., etc. We do the same thing when we are in conversation, right? You want to be in a state of listening. You don't want to be looking around in the room, doing other things, etc. So the goal here is to be in the state of learning for whatever you're trying to accomplish. And when you are in the right state of mind, when you have a strong mental and emotional state, your stress levels decrease. Your cognitive function improves It allows you to think clearly and make better decisions. You're now able to shift your focus from seeing obstacles to now seeing possibilities. And what happens is now that your point of view has changed, you're looking at challenges as opportunities for learning and growth rather than seeing them as roadblocks to keep you stagnant and stuck. When you believe your abilities and your circumstances are unchangeable, growth and experimentation becomes stifled. There's no progress. But by shifting your state of mind, you now create room for progress and new possibilities. And lastly, when your state of mind and your emotional state is aligned, that lack of motivation is no longer present. Lack of motivation is often a reflection of depleted energy. Your state of mind is now, it directly impacts your motivation. And if you're not in the right state of mind, when you're attempting to begin any new task, you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle to take that first step. So, by achieving a breakthrough, it requires both emotional and mental preparation. There's a quote, very popular quote: if you fail to prepare, you're prepared to fail. Something like that. I might be butchering it, but I think I'm close. We want to be very cognizant about the factors that drain our energy and deplete our motivation. By consciously managing your state, you create the mental and physical energy needed to pursue breakthroughs with confidence and persistence. So now let's talk about story. I love story because story is the glue. Story is the foundation. It's not the life that controls you, it's the life that you focus on that leads to the control. The things you focus on is what you find real, and that becomes your story. We don't just experience life, we experience the life we focus on. The things we give our attention to become our reality, shaping our beliefs and ultimately our story. For example, if your story is, I've tried everything, nothing works, chances are you might actually stop trying altogether. Even if the answer is right in front of your face, you've already given up because that is your story. The more you repeat a narrative, the more you begin to believe that narrative, even if it doesn't reflect what's in reality. So, what's actually happening here is that your brain now creates a blind spot, filtering out possibilities that contradict your story. It doesn't want you to win now because you've already created a narrative that you've chosen to believe. I call this the trap of limiting stories. No matter how strong your strategy is, you won't be able to implement it effectively if you're stuck in a limiting story. Your story is the glue that keeps you stuck. Negative self talk and unproductive narratives about who you are and what you can actually accomplish only damage your potential for growth. If your story is built around fear, doubt, or past failures, it will sabotage your ability to reach your breakthrough moment. Here's the key: the key is to divorce the idea. No, the key is to divorce your story of limitations and marry the truth of your abilities. So the question now becomes, how do we break free from old narratives? And what I mean by narratives, I'm talking about the limiting stories. See, even when you move forward, you might find yourself tempted to revisit your old narratives, which are your limiting stories, simply out of curiosity or familiarity. The past provides comfort, even if it wasn't serving you, because sometimes the present and the future can feel uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen, but we feel comfort with what we already know. So, for example, many of us strive to become financially secure, financially free, which requires developing new spending, saving, and investing habits. But the thing is, these new habits, these new patterns can feel overwhelming sometimes. So when that happens, we might subconsciously retreat back into old patterns where now we're returning to financial habits that did not serve us, financial habits that are rooted in scarcity, financial habits that are rooted in poor decision making or past financial trauma. These setbacks create mental barriers that now make it even harder to try again. And that's why I labeled this podcast episode The Power of One More Try. And this is why I believe story comes before strategy. Think about a time when you tried something new without even switching or making a shift in your mindset. You automatically thought of the strategy. This is what I'm going to do. Your story must come before strategy because with the right story, you will find the right strategy. But if your story is built on the limitations, your strategy will not work. So the goal here is to change your story, change your life. But I'm going to keep it real. I'm not asking you to ignore your struggles and pretend that your story does not exist and your story is not real. Because if your story is, I've tried everything in life, life just keeps throwing curveballs after curveball and roadblocks after roadblocks, nothing is going my way, then so be it. But guess what? That is the wrong story. A more empowering story is, I've tried everything. I've gone through all of these experiences and challenges, and now I'm ready. I'm ready for the next step, and this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm willing to do. In comes your strategy. Implementing strategy the right way after you have developed or created the better story. When you start with strategy, sometimes it could lead you off into the wrong direction, right? When we're trying something new or we're into a challenge or we have a lot on our plate, we always think about how. How do I get through this? How do I get this done? I titled this section, The Overwhelmingness of How. When you focus too much on the how to achieve something new or something at all, we immediately jump into implementing a strategy. We place this strategy as the foundation of how we are progressing, how we plan to progress forward. This is the process in the planning. Trying to build a step-by-step plan from start to finish. The caveat, the issue about starting with strategy or spending too much time on how and not really shifting our mindset and changing our story is now we become overwhelmed before we even begin the process. And that can be counterintuitive to the journey. If you're stuck in a state of stress and uncertainty, no strategy, no matter how well planned out it is, it's not going to be effective. I mean, maybe it will, but I don't think so. So the goal here is to have your state of mind and your emotional state aligned. And then you create the better story. And then you clearly define your goals. The situation here with strategy is beyond being overwhelmed. Another major roadblock is poorly defined strategies. When your steps are unclear, your efforts become aimless. Without a well structured roadmap, motivation begins to dwindle. And now you're at risk of falling into a cycle of stagnation and taking steps that lead to aimless effort. A successful strategy requires clarity. If your defined plans are structured enough to withstand any struggle or any deterrent on the road, you can find yourself free to stay committed in order to make meaningful progress. I no longer start with strategy due to the fear of moving forward with the wrong approach. First, I get my mind right, get the story right, and then I create the strategy. One of the most frustrating, disheartening experiences I've had is realizing that I've wasted too much time on ineffective methods and strategies that don't work for where I'm currently at. Time is a luxury that you cannot get back. And knowing you spent weeks, months, or even years pursuing a particular approach that wasn't right for you can be devastating. Many of us unknowingly, as I mentioned earlier, rely on outdated and ineffective strategies and methods that don't really align with our specific or unique circumstances. We just see that it works for someone else and we automatically want to implement that. But you weren't in the right state of mind in order to do that. You didn't have the right story in order to begin that process. So, what is the key takeaway? Strategy does matter, but I believe that it must come after you've addressed your state of mind, your emotional state, and created the better story. So the step-by-step process that I go through, first I optimize my state of mind, right? You get into the right mindset, you get into the right emotional space. You got to create that space. And then you rewrite your story. You shift your beliefs, your ideals, your patterns, so that they align with what you really want to achieve. And once you do that, only then you should focus on strategy. Because by that point, you're mentally and emotionally prepared. Your story is right. You're ready to go. If someone asks you, okay, what is your story? Boom, boom. This is that. Tell me your backstory. Guess what? Boom, boom. And now you can take action in the way that it should work. This is the approach that ensures that you're not just throwing aimless effort into these random tactics or methods, but you're actually building a foundation that supports real breakthrough moments. So, in conclusion, I want to re-emphasize that breakthroughs are moments in time where we discover a connection between the feeling of giving up and the feeling of giving it one more try. Full circle. I love that. Story time. It's been a while since I recorded a podcast episode this year, and this is my third time recording this episode. The first two takes, the volume was just so low, the quality was just trash, and I was willing to just go with the second one just to put something out there. And then I realized that the title of the episode is The Power of One More Try. So I gave it one more try, and I was satisfied with this take. That feeling that you experience when giving it one more try is an emotional and a mental shift in believing what is possible from what appeared to be impossible. This in turn shifts the story you end up narrating in your mind. This story is so critical amid challenging trials because it can be the difference maker between how badly you want to see yourself win. Sometimes a breakthrough isn't about achieving a massive goal. It's about realizing you've been measuring progress in the wrong way. And once you've adopted the right mindset or emotional state and created that right emotional space, then create the better story to tell yourself, to narrate in your mind as you're going through these challenges, you will surely find the right strategy to achieve that breakthrough moment that you're meant for. I am your host. Till next time.
Naum.